Thank you, Joy, and it's always a great way to start the year as we come together. I forget how many years this is now, probably we're into 7 or 8, and they're a wonderful way to start the school year together. I want to first of all welcome Father Chris D'Souza, who tells me that he's not the Vicar General, but he does still look after education for us. As you know, we have our administrator, Father Peter Williams is our administrator, and Father Peter has still asked Father Chris just to keep an eye on education as part of his actual full-time role, which he revels in as being parish priest at St Oliver's at Harris Park. Can I tell you, when Chris takes on something to keep an eye on, it's almost a full-time job. And I thank him for his commitment and the passion he brings. So, Chris, you're very welcome. So thanks for being with us. Our special guests from across the ditch, Graham and Professor Graham Atkin and Sandra Atkins, who's a principal from Auckland as well. We'll get a more detailed bio, but you are both very welcome, and thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. We have our guests from our congregational schools as well. You are very welcome to this and any other of the works that we do collaboratively. So thank you for coming and sharing with us. We're going to have Lynn Sharrett joining us via video. It won't be a live link, but Lynn will be well known to you, and she'll be here next week to begin some further work with us. I also acknowledge all those who are welcomed as new either to the system or to their roles, but in particular I would like to welcome Paul Easton. Paul, if you stand up. Paul's our Director of System Performance who looks after the Greater Blacktown area. Paul, you're very welcome. I just want to talk to you briefly about the context for the year, really. As you know, it's a great opportunity as we come together as leaders to just look at a bit of a focus of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And you'll be pleased to know that there's no shift in direction and there's nothing new per se, but I'll come to that. I only hope that the year starts as well for me as the end of the year was for me. I don't know whether you are aware yet, but there is a publication that's in print at the moment that's going to come out. It's going to be a record seller. It's going to be one of those books you won't be able to put down. I was invited by one of our principals out to the school to listen and talk to 60 little saints in kindergarten who had spent a year researching and writing a story. It was a novel. And in fact, the little boy who ended up writing on behalf of all the students called himself an author. I'm an author. So the title of the book is The Adventures of Mr Whippy. I do know that there are several versions of how you spell my last name, and I think I saw them all amongst the writings of those young boys and girls. But can I tell you, we had a fabulous hour and a half together as we talked about the process of writing. I talked to the two wonderful teachers who had this passion for learning, the principal who had a passion for learning, the staff who encouraged the kids to write to them and then write back to them, then talk about their writing. And then, of course, the wonderful experiences we sat down and read The Adventures of Mr Whippy. I won't go into it. I'll let you wait for it, or if you want to look at it, if you have a look at my blog on Blue Yonder, wordpress.com, you'll find the animated version. It's well worth the read. One thing about these novelists I thought was wonderful, the tension builds towards, when I'm kidnapped by the spider and the spider carries me away. Must be some spider. However, the diagram was there to prove it, and I got put into the web, and the issue was, would the spider eat Mr Whippy? And I couldn't turn the page, I didn't know the answer. I thought if I'd offered that opportunity to some of my colleagues, I might know the answer. But the young boys and girls decided that there was an alternative way out. So I walked away from that, and those who work in the office and on the fourth floor will tell you, when I came back into the office, I couldn't shut up about the story. And that's the story, I suppose, of what's going on daily in our schools. Oh, one thing I did forget, as I was leaving, the young fellow told me they're working on a sequel already. So that's the context, and we're talking this year about another plan, another chunk, and the way we'll talk about their work we're doing so we can use them as touchstones. But our context for change, and you'll see this in the work we do, in the spaces that we have. We've got wonderful things happening in our schools by way of innovative process, innovative practices, and people stepping out of their comfort zone. One of the things that strikes me about that, when you look at some of the spaces that are emerging in our schools and some of the way people are going about doing the learning and teaching, is that we're not finding the answers just in past practices. We're obviously cognizant of what works and what doesn't work, but it seems to me that we've moved into a place where we don't mind trying something different. And I think that's the core of this. The answers aren't to be found in what we did in the past and trying to refine them. The answers are going to be in somehow, as we work together to look anew at what we're doing, to refresh and revitalise. Most of you would know our planning framework that you've seen that just up here on the board that started around 2006 and 2007, where we started with challenging the norms, and we've worked through all those issues that have arisen at that time, and we've just come through 2013, 2014, which was all about teaching. We started all about learning, it's all about teaching. And then last year we talked about going deeper, which provided us with the focus that we wanted to take as we tried in the search to implement the high yield strategies in our schools that would have the greatest effect on improving student learning. One of the proud things that I say about our system is that I think we really get this difference. How often do you hear people talk about it's all about the kids? It's all about the boys and girls in our school. Well, yes, that's true. But we exist to do something. It's not just about the boys and the girls in our school. It's about improving the learning of each one of those boys and girls. How often we forget the core purpose, the moral purpose we have. It is about improving the learning of the boys and girls in our schools and making sure in doing that that we're true to the mission of the church, that we give saints to the world. I see then the Renew and Adapt, which is the title of the next this year and next year, as just a way of building on the work that we have done. We will look at things afresh. We'll look at what we have done, what has worked, how has it worked, and we'll renew and we'll recommit. Things that haven't worked, that we need to try differently, we will be courageous enough to move into some sort of adaptation and change. You might call that innovation, but we will be calling it renew and adapt. And I know that those words will resonate with you because I see it taking place in the workplaces that we have. If I look back on 2014, you get many experiences like the one I said shared with the boys and girls in our schools, but in helping shape our thinking, why do we select Renew and Adapt? And when the directors sat around and talked about this, we all bring our personal experiences to the table. One of the things that really resonated with me and was in the background of my thinking as we were discussing what and how we would express this next 2 years was my experience that I had on the Principals Pilgrimage. We now have about 2/3, just over half or 2/3 of our principals who've undertaken a pilgrimage. The first one was titled The Bishop's Pilgrimage, And then, of course, last year, we all know what happened a week before the pilgrimage was due to take place. Father Chris found himself leading the Bishop's pilgrimage. We didn't change it, did we, Chris? We still call it the Bishop's pilgrimage. But Father Chris, it wasn't the D'Souza pilgrimage. And those of you here who participated in that would say what a wonderful experience it was. But for me, it's a great personal experience in the work we do about renewing and adapting, because that's actually what happens in that sort of formative experience. Because there is that sense of renewal, the sense of working with what we have done and how we've done it, the shared liturgy, the shared prayer, and then the shared experience of what we do, the discussion and the dialogue, the testing of the work we're doing. So it continually renews and somehow refreshes. And then, of course, the challenge is, well, so what do we do afterwards? How are we going to implement what we do, and how are we going to adapt that work and bring that perspective to the work we do? The overall feeling I have over those two experiences is that they actually refresh and revitalise you. I'd love to think this year, in renewing and adapting, you end up being refreshed and revitalised, so that you end the school years full of excitement and with this sense of wonder and excitement as you look forward to 2016. So perhaps that will be a goal we can set ourselves. On Monday, the directors met and we had a look at this slide here where we just talked about, well, like what's really the guts of this renewing and adapting. So let's put a little bit of flesh on the bone. So we've got 5 sort of areas that are mapped generally around our strategy, because we talk about purpose, strategy, we're continually talking about innovation. We're talking about system performance. How are we doing what we do? Because we definitely have that responsibility. And then it's around this thing that we do it together. It's around collaboration. So you can map these tasks that we were going to do. These are general. They're not meant to be definitive, but just give you some sense of the work we will be doing. We will be continuing on the leaders' pilgrimages, and Father Chris is actually going to lead 2 for us this year, one with our RECs in April and in November with the principals again. We will be working with Lynn Sharrett and Graham and Sandra and a range of people this year. We'll have our principal masterclass, so we will be adapting and individualising learning experiences. We'll be evaluating impact on practice. We'll be working together on data. We'll be looking at the QCS data, the whole range of things. But ultimately, one of the things I'd hope would happen is that we spend more time on sharing and collaboration, because that's really how we will renew and adapt. We come to share our story, and that's what this is about. It's a story. You've heard me talk about this as a narrative. It's a very powerful narrative. I just want to make sure we have the narrative that suits the Church of Parramatta, and that is in sync with the narrative, the global narrative. If we have ever needed a powerful narrative, now is the time. If we look at what's happening around the world, the only thing that will help change what is happening is a more powerful narrative, a narrative that's life-giving, a narrative that's energetic, a narrative that sustains and nurtures life and is not negative and based on a concept of evil. So that's right at the very heart about this. It has profound implications for us. It gives us a structure for the way we go about our work. Key to that will be the work that Lynn Sharrett has done and will continue to be doing with us. Our text this year is Good to Great, to innovate. And those of you who would remember one of our first texts that we actually adopted after How People Learn was Good to Great, which was a framework for continuous improvement. Now, if you want to call this continuous improvement, I'm happy, but it's about innovating now, and it's good to great. Lynn's text provides very concrete ways to do the work we're doing as we go about renewing and adapting. So we have a resource there for you. We have much to celebrate. We've got a sort of a graphic here of just a very high-level overview of some of the performance data that we have. We are doing very well, and this is not a triumphalism. Can we do better? Yes, but we're not approaching this from a negative point of view and a need to take drastic action. We know we're on the right path. We know that we have the provision, and we know that we have the focus. I prepared, as I usually do at this time of year, a paper for you for your reading. You might want to use it with your staff. It tries to encapsulate what I've just talked about. I hope it has some life outside of the fact that it might gather dust on your desk before you can sign it to the bin. But it should be, and I hope it is, a working document for you. You'll be pleased to know I'm not going to read it to you, but I do want to just make comment on one section. And I do so perhaps in a way to frame the work we're going to do today. The Finnish author and educational Pasi Salzberg wrote in 2013 that all teachers are vital, but the culture of the school is even more important for the quality of the school. We have focused on deeply learning and teaching and the critical role of the teacher. But Salzberg makes this point that the quality of the culture is the important thing for the quality of the school. Each one of you here today plays a critical role in shaping the culture of the schools, in shaping thinking and practice of teachers, and in the quality of the relationships with our parents, parishes and wider community. And that's the challenge I ask you to take up today for this school year, and it's the same work that you've been doing every year, but it gives us a very strong touchstone to look back and reflect on the work that we're doing. Thank you very much. I look forward to a great year with you.